Hi everyone, I'm Alex and you're watching Beam Pulse episode 10. Today we're going to talk about the big picture, the future of crypto and decentralized finance, and how Beam strategy fits into all of this. So as you know, we have recently announced that we're launching BeamX, which is our confidential DeFi experimental network, in November. And immediately after that announcement, we were asked a lot of questions by our community. What does it mean for Beam? Whether Beam is doing a pivot, or is it just some opportunistic move to try to get something from the DeFi hype? And I would like to explain and answer all these questions, and we'll start with that last part about opportunism. So if Beam indeed was an opportunistic project, we would be probably the worst one in history. When we have launched on January 3rd, 2019, it was the middle of crypto winter, Bitcoin price was under $4,000, and obviously we have missed 2017 and all the crazy days from which most of the market cap of the current projects come from. And of course, right now, as we announce confidential DeFi platform that we're launching, it will be probably released to mainnet next year. When you read, or if you read the news, you'll probably learn that DeFi hype is over, the bubble has burst, and it's no longer interesting. And now all of the focus is going back to Bitcoin right now, which is growing rapidly. So we basically would pretty much suck at this kind of opportunism. However, there is another type of opportunism which Beam uses rather successfully, and it's a technological opportunism. Whenever we see a great technology that we recognize, we adopt it, we adapt it to our needs, and we implement it and we launch it. And that happened several times, for example, with the Fly client and also with the Lilantos Mimble protocol that was launched recently to improve Beam privacy even further and provide both offline and max privacy transactions. And basically, in the next 5.2 version, which will be released to testnet next week and probably to mainnet a week after that, we will already implement all this in our UI wallets. And this is an example of something that was not expected. We encountered the paper, it was written in the late 2018, it got our attention in 2019, and somewhere around the end of the year we started working on that. And in the fork that we had in June, we actually activated it on our mainnet. So as for the pivot, we don't see this as a pivot necessarily, because Beam does not stop being the best-in-class privacy coin, and we continue to work along these lines and improve our privacy and our usability. And it's not like we're changing direction. What we are doing instead, we're adding a new dimension. And we have already started doing that in the past with features like atomic swaps and our laser beam direct payment channels, by trying to add more value to our users, being able to use Beam not just for confidential transactions, but also for atomic swaps and other operations. We even designed some interesting applications for perpetual swaps and other P2P trading ideas. However, we have discovered that it's not enough to use cryptoscripts for some of the applications that we really wanted to add on our chain, such as confidential stablecoin and also DEX, which is based on AMM. So, which is why we have decided to add smart contracts, which we call Beam shaders, to our network. And this decision is very recent. It just happened like a couple of months ago. And as usual, we're moving very quickly. So which is why it kind of seems sudden. Usually we wait much longer before we launch publicly available testnet than we do with BeamX. We don't, as you know, test in production. So we make sure everything we release is very well tested, stable, and reliable. But in this case, we wanted to gather as much feedback as possible back from the community of both users and developers, since it's an important part for us to be able to create an ecosystem around our platform. So which is why we released a very, very early version of BeamX this month in November. And the exact date will be announced, I think, in the following few days. I'm almost sure it will be Thursday, but I cannot say anything more than that right now. In any case, we do this as an attempt to involve our community not just in testing or using our new platform, but also in actively designing it and interacting with it when it is born and when it's growing. And I think it will provide us a lot of useful feedback at the early stages, feedback that we really need. And we will be able to learn a lot from this process. So when we finally launch it, I think it will be somewhere in Q1 next year, probably March. We will be much more ready to handle the real applications that we want to have there and add all the necessary functions along the way using this feedback provided by the developers. So now I would like to say a few words about bubbles. And bubbles historically have been kind of an adoption mechanism for crypto. When something new appears and then it explodes, there is a lot of interest, a lot of money goes in, a lot of activity, and obviously a lot of scams, rug pulls, and other not very pleasant things. But eventually, when this bubble explodes, the things that remain are moving the industry forward. And this happened also in 2017. And of course, it also happened right now in 2020 with the DeFi bubble. And for example, Uniswap, which is a brilliant AMM-based decentralized exchange, was actually created in 2018, but it only got very big and very well known these days pretty recently. And as a result, it basically created new type of decentralized exchanges that a lot of other projects are either copying or modifying or improving. And this is the way how this entire industry moves forward. So bubbles are something very integral to this space, and they happen quite often. And it's completely okay. And of course, if you are lucky enough to be somewhere in the beginning of the bubble, you can also get rich in the process. But even if you're not, you receive a lot of new information, and a lot of new technologies appear, get validated, and eventually adopted across the industry. Another great example of the technology that got very good at what it does is algorithmic stablecoins like MakerDAO DAI. And this is also something that evolved with time, and we've seen already several iterations on this project, from the single collateral to the multi-collateral DAI, and every time the financial model of this application changes a little, how you pay your fees and how this entire balancing and regulation of their like fiscal policy works, and it kind of takes into account all the things that have happened during this time, including, for example, the recent crash in March 2020, which MakerDAO DAI went through rather well. And it's very important because these are the things that can really improve the product, being forced to deal with these very severe circumstances, harshly fluctuating prices, and liquidity problems and such stuff like that. And obviously, all of these things provide information back into the industry and back to us, so we can learn what happened and implement all the conclusions into the future generations of our products. Another interesting example is flash loans, which are used a lot in different kind of attacks, exploits, and scams on one hand, but on the other hand, it's a very important financial mechanism that I think is one of the unique advantages of decentralized finance over the traditional finance. So it's mixed blessing, but it should be probably used carefully. There should be limitations. For example, maybe you don't want to have flash loans on voting operations or governance transactions and stuff like that. So this is also something that we need to analyze and take into account whenever we build new applications on any platform, and obviously on Beam as well. One trend that we definitely recognize as something stable and very important, and something that we take into account heavily in our strategy, is the blockchain interoperability. If you come to think about it, wrapped Bitcoin is an example of exactly that. I have Bitcoin, but I want to be able to use it in trading on Ethereum. I want to be able to use it in Uniswap or Curve or any other DeFi protocols out there. So, which is why it's great for me to be able to represent my Bitcoins as Ethereum tokens and use them there. So right now, most of these representations are centralized or federated. And even though there are mechanisms to protect and prevent problems with decentralization, still it's something that cannot be done in other way because of the limitations of Bitcoin. For other assets, there are other possibilities. For example, when we're talking about building bridges between Beam and Ethereum and Beam and Polkadot, we're talking about completely decentralized solutions that use smart contracts and do not rely on any trusted source during this process. And we think that going forward, we are going to try and integrate into this ecosystem, into existing ecosystem, instead of like building a new and closed environment which competes with everybody else. We will instead try to integrate with existing solutions, whether they run on Ethereum, Polkadot, or other chains, and use this kind of sidechain philosophy to take the best out of every ecosystem and provide additional value to our users in privacy, decentralization, and in high quality applications for professional trading, and use our unique usability and our expertise in building usable and beautiful products to do that. So of course there's still like a question like how Beam compares, or how BeamX compares to, I don't know, Aztec or like other layer 2 Ethereum projects that use ZK rollups and stuff like that. And we will answer these questions, and in most cases these answers will be fairly technical, because in order to understand the differences you need to dive deeper into technology. But on the other hand, I don't think we will try to like compete directly with any of them, because once again, rollups are a general mechanism for improving privacy, for improving scalability on layer 2. Sometimes they can improve privacy as well, and they are applicable across a wide range of networks. Beam is not excluded, so maybe these improvements will also find their way onto Beam, and maybe we will do it on layer 1. That depends, of course, but I think what we will try to achieve is this kind of seamless integration, or as seamless as possible integration, into existing ecosystems such as Ethereum, Polkadot, and others. So as a vision, if you take a look at it from high above, and the perspective is that you should be able to move any value from any chain or create a new value on Beam and then trade it confidentially and with complete confidence and easily. And these solutions will be integrated into our wallets, whether mobile or desktop or web wallet, in a way that will allow you to get the best trading experience or the best confidential transaction experience, but without having to sacrifice some value that you have on like somewhere else. So when you look at our project from this perspective, it becomes clear what we're going for in the long term. And as a framework that would allow you to understand our decisions and our strategy going forward, you can always think about these three values that we represent and that we currently strive for, which are confidentiality, decentralization, and usability. So everything we do is aimed at improving these three categories, and together with interoperability, as I mentioned, we would like to be able to be that place where you can take any type of value, whether using oracles or whether using some other mechanism for determining the price, move it to Beam, and then trade it on Beam with confidentiality in a very easy to use way, integrate it with the entire environment and the ecosystem, and if you need to move it back to the original chain or any other chain that allows it, and sell it there. And this is why in this picture you can see our initial set of capabilities for 2021 that we would like to provide. And this of course includes decentralized exchange, order-based decentralized exchange built into the wallet, so you can easily swap and trade any type of confidential asset on Beam. Of course we have atomic swaps already, and on top of that, using our confidential DeFi platform with smart contracts, you can also create applications that further extend your trading capabilities, whether it's AMM-based exchanges or confidential stablecoin, algorithmic one, of course, and also lending platform and other applications that basically enhance your trading experience, allow you to create more derivatives, synthetic assets, and work with them within our integrated environment. This is in essence our goal, and this is our direction, our approach, our strategy, whatever you call it. And we see it as an organic extension of what we have been doing so far. We have been working on layer 1, which is the privacy, and now we're building on top of it new stuff that can be, I think, very useful and interesting. In any case, all of this is coming in the next several months, so it's going to be exciting, and I hope you stay tuned and follow our project and learn what we're doing. Help us, of course, with your feedbacks and your support as you have been so far. So thank you very much for watching this, and have a great weekend.